who came to us with a lot of experience, but also some really outstanding ideas. And so, come on in.
Sorry, we got lost. We went to the third floor.
Oh,
I
yeah.
did 3 flights and didn't need to. So I just
There
I
are two
was
chairs
like-
right there in the front.
Oh, I'm
thanks,
gonna
Cassie.
stand.
That's what happens when you're late. Anyhow, Mr. Bennett notified me that he has some students who have been competing and for some science recognitions, and he asked if he could have them recognized this evening. And in particular, Mr. Bennett, I believe there is one who is going to speak to us or read to us or
She can go
something,
out to the
correct?
presentation, yes, sir.
So, Mr. Bennett, if you want to come around,
Sure.
Terry Bennett from the high school, give us a better introduction than I just did, please.
Yes, sir. We have a lot going on in science with the regional science fair, with the conservation workshop at NC State, with the environmental competition, and lastly with the soil and water conservation district. So if I could ask my buddy Blair to talk to us about some of the overview, then we'll go into each of the presentations.
Hi, Mrs. Ogburn from the high school. All right. One of our Maroon Devils is the only Swain applicant for the 2025 Summer Resource Conservation Workshop at NC State, Lily Craig. Swain County High School has one summer scholarship for the Perry Astronomy Camp in Rosman, and we hope to name our recipients soon. Earth Day 2025 will expand into Earth Week on our campus. We have reserved presentation for Mountain True to teach our environmental scholars about sampling for microplastics in local streams, and the Energy Center from Silva will appear on campus. The Green Energy Park, that is, from Silva. Thanks to Gear Up, our environmental students will have a hands-on lab day with staff from the Grace Fossil Museum and learn about geology programs at ETSU. And finally, Mr. Bennett and I are very excited about our new Eco Club. Our first project has been to collect donations of food and money to support our local and out-of-state firefighters. We will feature a donation box in the lobby for the final 3 productions of The Wizard of Oz on April 4th, 5th, and 6th. Our first donations were very gladly received yesterday.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next up, we are going to talk to Mr. Max Lanning about our science fair.
Hey, I'm Max Lanning. I'm here tonight to recognize Lorelei Wegner. Lorelai's a senior in my AP biology class. I require independent research projects, and she submitted hers to the regional science fair. Got first place in the Earth and Environmental Science Division at the regional. Was also invited to state. And I wanted to read the title. She had a very long, well thought out title. The Oil and Soil, Utilizing Various Plants as a Potential Method of Oil Cleanup via Phytoremediation and Observing the Effects of Motor Oil on Plant Growth. Like I said, she's a senior and she's going to Western Carolina University this fall. Correct me if I'm wrong, double majoring in environmental science and natural resource conservation and management.
Mr. Graves, talk to us about Envirothon.
All right, our Envirothon team went to regionals last week. Envirothon is a environmental education, team-based, hands-on testing program, I guess. I don't know, it's all in one. Students focus on 5 areas. They focus on soils and land use. They focus on aquatics, forestry, wildlife, and then current environmental issues. The last one changes each year. Students are given a hefty binder, and they basically need to memorize that binder from front to back rather. And these students this year, due to our schedule and the weather-related issues with scheduling this year, they really were on their own. They had to memorize that binder. We had 3 new people to our team that have never stepped in an Envirothon competition until last week, so they really didn't know what they were getting into. And I'm proud to say that they scored first out of 19 teams in the region and qualified for the state competition in May. Unfortunately, because prom is the same weekend, they won't be going to state. But I want to recognize Natasha Bentley is our team captain, who is not here tonight. Port Sontheimer, who's also not here tonight. Emma Heron, who is one of our new members and designed our shirt. And if you know, you know. Loamy has to do with soil, so. And then Lorelei Wegner, who's right there, and Seth Carroll. And they are also 2 newbies to the team, and they were awesome last week, so way
with Shelby Cook, our environmental educator for the county. We entered the soil and water contest, and the theme this year was wetlands. If you will stand when I call your name, my kids are very busy and lots going on. First place in the essay competition was Kendall Brown. I don't think she did make it. Second place was Leah Brown. There's Leah, thank you. And our third place was Maddie Walkinsdale. We are not done with the kids yet. We've had a delay. A couple of the staff members have gotten ill. We don't know yet the two people that will go from essay competition regional to Raleigh, but essay and the electronic presentation still have a chance to go. So when we get the scores from the office over in Waynesville, we'll let you know. In the land of the slideshow, first place is Riley Gunter. If you'll stand, please. Number 2 in slideshow was Elijah Dingle. I do believe Oliver is at an athletic event. Oliver Millsaps is third place in the slideshow. And our creme de la creme, our last, is our region champion in the speaking contest. Her name is Miss Delilah Parker. She is a proud member of the cast and crew of Wizard of Oz. She's a proud member of the Marching Maroon Devils Band. And to close our bit, she is going to present her region-winning speech. So if you'll give her the floor, we appreciate it. We love it.
The question is, can you? Or is it too much
You do great
pressure
job.
for you tonight?
Yeah.
Too much pressure?
Yeah.
Okay.
We thank you for the time and opportunity.
We're just gonna say congratulations and thank you, all right? And thanks to all of you. Can we give them another round of applause?
We're traveling to Raleigh on April 24, 25, and she will present against 7 region winners for a chance to win the state title. And if we do have members that win on the essay and the PowerPoint, they would get recognized, but there will not be an actual competition. So Delilah is our traveler to Raleigh.
Very good. All right, thank you all. Thank you very much. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting tonight if you would like to, but we're going.
We'll get a group picture up here maybe of
Well,
them.
it's probably a good idea, Barbara. So could all of our participants, students, come up here? I know. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
That's it. We're not, we
Okay.
didn't do our best and then some, because I knew we would be in this facility.
Right.
And,
I just wanted to make sure that was done.
yeah.
All right.
And I really didn't plan on that until Mr. Bennett said, can we please, because Delilah, he wanted Delilah to have another opportunity, and she wasn't prepared. I'll give it. Okay?
All right. We'll begin with our pledge and prayer. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, Lord God, we thank you for another good day you've given us, God. We thank you, Lord, that we're able to be here today, Father. God, we ask you to go with us in this meeting, Father God. Lead, guide, and direct in the decisions we need to make. Your Heavenly Father, give us insight and wisdom, God. Give us discernment, Father, of what you'd have us to do. Just bless this meeting. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen.
4:40, call the meeting to order. First item is the approval of the agenda. Mr. Davis came up, and I believe it probably would be beneficial for the closed session at A to be moved just to the bottom. Let's go ahead and have all the conversation that we need to about budget amendments, contracts, and the like, and just in case there's anyone here that needs to leave or get anything done, and then if we could move that to the bottom just before the action. Is that okay with you?
That's fine.
Okay.
So we're moving closed session
What's
just before the action.
correct? Just, yeah, below board policy update. All right.
Motion to approve the agenda with that amendment.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Passes. Agenda's approved. The approval of the consent agenda.
There are several other positions that are being considered tonight. The largest percentage of those are summer camp and Read to Achieve. All of those employees that are being put up tonight are actually working for our school system now.
So it's just new assignment.
They're
Well,
additional.
additional.
They're additional assignment, additional jobs for this summer.
Okay.
And then there are a couple of other additions, as far as, I think there's an addition for a resignation, and then some transfers that don't require approval. If you want to pull any of those names out and vote on them independently, we can do that, okay? That would need to be moved by the board, though.
Is there any,
This one.
we got just a moment.
Okay.
If no one, I think everyone's okay with it, if everyone is okay with it without the need to pull anyone off individually or making amendments to it, do I have a motion to accept or to approve the consent agenda for the personnel?
Motion.
Hey.
Any further discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Passes unanimous.
Since we've moved closed session to later in the agenda, the first item will be budget amendments from Ms. Treadwell.
Yes.
Yes.
Alright, so first I just want to apologize for not having this in your packets since we moved the meeting up. I just did not have time to get them out sooner. But, the first report would be the budget versus actual. We just completed month 9 of 12, as of March 31st. So we should be right at 75% of our budget. And as you can look down through there for each fund, we are right on target. Federal, as I've explained before, has been trending a little higher on that percentage because of our HVAC project. Capital outlays trending higher just because of our purchases, or the state purchase of the bus and the electric bus. Food nutrition is well below budget at 59%. And our special revenue fund is below budget at 65%. But all is trending as projected. For our budget amendments, I didn't have a lot of budget amendments just for state and for federal, but on the state public school fund, we have an overall increase in the budget of $134,104. There's $27 to our classroom teacher allotment. In driver's ed, there was an additional allotment of $508. We received our safety grant in PRC 40 of $80,000. For children with disabilities, we've received an additional allotment of $51,028. And for transportation, we received an equipment contingency allotment of $14,004. And we did have one reversion for hurricane relief funds of $11,463. They were very specific in what that could be used for, and, we just didn't have a lot of missed days, so we had to revert back what we did not use, and that was $11,463. For federal grants funds, PRC 115, which is Title I School Improvement, we had an allotment of $12,936. Title I, we had an additional allotment of $3,398, and for Title II, we had an additional allotment of $412 for an overall increase of $16,746. Any questions?
Any questions? Any questions on it? You should have in your pack a contract, and the contracts between Vanoy and LS3P look very similar. So you have to look on the front page and find the one that says LS3P. This contract has been vetted by John and by LS3P's attorneys, and it is in its final recommended form now. I believe that you have had an opportunity to look this over. Do you have any questions about this contract?
This one we reviewed last week, right?
Yes, it is. Nothing has changed in this one, Casey. Okay. This is a good time, if you have questions, to talk to the master of the contract.
I don't know about that. I was gonna say, you give me too much credit for review, and I had a lot of help from one Mr. Sale and one Ms. Treadway, that we wound up with, well, I don't know, probably between the two of them, about 40 different points of discussion and alteration and changes. I will say just, I'm tickled pink for you with this particular team. We work with a lot of different architects, a lot of different construction management firms. A lot of them are very good. Occasionally they're not. But if you just made me do it and make a recommendation, I couldn't do any better than LS3P and Vanoy for an architect and construction manager at risk team. So I'm real pleased for you. You won't go wrong with that.
So I'll be bringing that to you as a recommendation for approval when we get to the action items, all right?
All right.
Now, there is another contract, and I just gave you the most finalized copy, and I know that you have not had an opportunity to read that. And so, I'm not gonna ask for approval of that tonight. What I am going to ask is that you look that over very carefully and tell you that this contract has been vetted as extensively as the LS3P contract. This one didn't have as many corrections and additions to be made in it. Casey, I believe that you were in a conversation with us with Brian Walker, okay, in this. Do you have anything off the top of your head that you want to bring to our attention?
Just, did we get rid of that 1.5% finance fee on the, we talked a little bit about 30-day pay versus 45 pay.
We went to a 30-day pay because we got some information that Ms. Treadway feels comfortable with,
Yep.
that we can achieve the 30-day turnaround.
Okay.
Now, as far as the 1.5% fee, did we get that removed?
Now, I think the fee is still in there, but it's also statutory. The Prompt Pay Act says if we are late on a payment, that's the maximum that can be charged. Now, they can waive it, and as Mr. Walker told us that in that meeting, he didn't think they'd ever be after us to do it. I also think at the time we were talking about maybe more often worried about going over the 30 days. But it sounds like, and I don't know if you may want to hear from Ms. Treadway directly about it. It sounds to me like the state has been through this enough, because the last one that I had followed from beginning to end in Mitchell County, they had to work out a really rapid approval process between the school board, the county, and then apply for the funds. That it sounds like the state has gotten comfortable with the idea that you're gonna have kind of a regular monthly draw. They they know that, and it's not gonna, we should be able to stay on a 30-day timeline without any trouble.
They treat it a little bit differently than the lottery funds. The lottery funds, they do just process once a month, and it is like you get it in this month, but they may pay at the end of the following month. But with the needs-based, capital funding, they said we could basically go ahead and draw down like 3 months worth of expenditures, as long as we can substantiate why we're requesting that much money. They'll go ahead and put it in the county's disbursing fund, and then we can draw from that, so that we're not hampered by doing a drawdown every single pay app. So I think it'll be,
So we didn't ask them to specifically remove the 1.5%. I don't know that I've ever seen one that didn't have some stated percentage that they could ask for if we didn't pay on time.
But if we could draw down in 90 days, that shouldn't be a problem in advance. Okay. All right.
So your thoughts on that, Casey?
Well, I mean, if it's commonplace, then I'm okay with it. I would say, in my experience, I haven't seen it be real commonplace, but again, I'm a little further down the subcontractor tier than say a contract between a school or an owner and a GC like that. So if that's common and checks out, I'm good with it.
Okay, all right. There was another conversation that we had, Casey, that day, and I'll share it with all of you. There is the probability that there will be change orders along the way. Brian Walker suggested that we request a $200,000 or $250,000 limit for me to approve change orders. I've been talking to John tonight or this afternoon, and John agrees that we should stay within our $90,000 limit. And within our own board policies, I can move towards contracts up to $90,000 without going over a particular limit that requires a different level of approval. So we're going to put that $90,000 cap in there, just like we have in our board policies. And if there is anything that goes over that, I will come to you for approval for that, okay? Anything that's under $90,000, I will notify you about for change orders, okay? Does that make sense to you? That stays within our policy boundaries as well, okay?
And I don't want to undersell the need for the flexibility to make those change orders and sort of the discussion we had with Mr. Walker about it. I agree with that. I just, to me, you can run into misunderstandings all over the place if all of a sudden you make, it sounds like the superintendent's gonna throw around $250,000 here and there. And of course, he's never gonna do that. I know he's gonna keep you up to date about any change orders that he makes. But I just think it's more palatable for everybody if you follow a policy you've already got. And if we have something that's that big a deal, you can get in a meeting pretty quick if you need to. In addition to just sort of poll the board, make sure you're gonna be good with it, and then go move ahead if time is really a factor to make a particular change order.
Now, you and I had a conversation this afternoon also about the need to work collaboratively and cooperatively with the county on this. And so if I remember correctly, John, anytime that these change orders are happening, there needs to be support from both directions, the school board and also from the commissioners, am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so I would have a conversation with Lottie, and then she would poll her board for approval for that as well. Yes, sir.
So they had a much lower threshold. Is that a factor here or no?
I think we need to ask for an amendment to the interlocal agreement that'll bump us up to the 90,000. And I think emphasize that it does authorize your superintendent and the county manager to administer the agreement. So in my mind, we might need to clarify that a little bit, where we're talking about change orders. If it's at the 90 or below, he's gonna be able to give it a thumbs up without we're not going to either board in that instance. If it's above, we may need both. And I think your suggestion the other day, tell me if I'm getting it wrong, but I think we should explore the idea that we're gonna spend down the county match first. If we get past that point and we're just purely in the budget that's in the grant funds anyway, I don't think that jumping through both of those hoops is necessary. And frankly, if I'm the county, I'd rather do it that way too, so that we know our part's satisfied, go finish building your school. So I think we should ask for that too in our requested amendment for the interlocal agreement.
Certainly think it'd make it easier to manage if we do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else that we need to mention?
I don't think so, other than there's another big document that goes along with the A-133 contractor, construction manager at risk owner agreement. It's called the general conditions. You all are welcome to read them, and I know that you in particular, Casey, know what they are. They are the day-to-day, sort of workings of what's the job site look like, how do we do it, what's a rain day, what's not a rain day. You know, how do we manage this thing on a really granular sort of level? I want to point out one thing, and it came up in that meeting, and when I was first doing this, it confused me too. There's general conditions, which is what you pay on a lump sum basis for the contractor to run the operation at the site. This is a document that isn't that, it's a summary of sort of how we manage it on a day-to-day basis. So you'll hear those two terms, but they mean different things, even though it's the same words. I wouldn't really recommend you dig into this and read it a whole lot. Honestly, but we have, and we've reviewed it, and I think we're at a point of being ready to agree to it. As we referenced in our meeting the other day, it's the kind of thing where if you're really having to dig into it later on, something has gone really bad wrong. So we're gonna know we've got this as good shape as we can, and hopefully never talk about it again. And I've not ever needed to go into what general conditions documents say on a family contract, and don't expect to. So I don't know how much you all want to review this other document, but it is out there.
And I'll be happy to give you a copy of this, or here's your copy. It's only 85 pages long, technical terms, and if you need something to do, we'd love to provide it.
Having trouble falling asleep.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So my request for you then would be to go over the Vanoy contract. If you want the general conditions, let me know, and I'll make you a copy of that as well. And then, Cody, I would like for us to set a date, if we could, please.
Okay.
So that we could go ahead and get an approval on this. We've covered the 1.5%, and I think we're comfortable with that. We're going to put $90,000 in for the change order. John's going to work on an amendment for the interlocal agreement, so we'll be working on that as well, which will need to go upstairs. And within that, we'll be spending down the county match first, I believe. Okay, with those two items only in this document, are you comfortable if we put those in, and then you look at this, and then perhaps you give us a voice of approval by email at a later date?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you like to set a date, or could you set a date for that for me, so that I can get it on my calendar? Okay, and it doesn't have to be right now. You can talk about that. Okay. Is that comfortable with everyone? We have a meeting on April the 8th. It begins at 5 o'clock. This one will be upstairs. It's a week from today. That has to do with our conversation about budget with the county commissioners. Ms. Treadway is going to go over what she's going to show with them. And after that, I would encourage us to have a conversation about anything else that we want to include in this conversation. Okay, please. Bring all those fluids, that's what happens.
Sure.
What time is that again? 5.
Mr. Seal, will you be able to do this before that meeting on the 8th?
Yes, sir.
A lot of this, Mr. Sell went over at our last meeting, but just to briefly go over it with you, just to show you what we will be presenting. We are asking, of course, to cover our maintenance and facility operations, which consists of a 7-person team, 1 program supervisor. the ground supervisor, 2 maintenance supervisors for electrical and HVAC, 3 groundskeepers, our utilities, custodial supplies, maintenance supplies, our basic repairs and maintenance to facilities, custodial and maintenance contracted services, and the debt service for the energy project. Here's a breakdown of the cost of those items, which total $1,863,345. So this is the base of our request. This is what we request each year, is to cover our maintenance and our facility operations. And once again, the debt principal and interest is for our energy savings contract. Reading assistance, the county has done a special appropriation for the last 4 years now for our reading assistants. We have 2 assistants at each elementary school. The total cost of that for next year, we're projecting at $175,850. Also, want to let you know, these projections are based on a 2% increase in salary, a 1% increase in retirement, and about 3% increase in health insurance. Those are just merely projections. We don't know what the state is going to pass, but that's what these projections are based on. Special projects team that is funded by our Article 46 tax revenue, and that cost is right at $200,000 for a year. That's a 3-person team consisting of 1 supervisor and 2 crew members. We are asking for 20% funding for our nurses and social workers. Prior to COVID, those were 80% employee positions, which were the equivalent of 4-day weeks. And we were able to fund that extra 20% out of ESSER, and we are currently funding those positions, the 20% out of carryover funds that we have and some federal funding sources because we had the COVID funds. And so we'll be asking for funding from the county to cover that, which is $107,825. We're also asking for a dean of students. We also were able to provide an extra dean of students through COVID funding for our elementary schools. We have 1 that we paid for out of state, and then were able to do an additional one from ESSER funding, and that cost is estimated at $81,000. This is the historical funding just since 2018, showing what we've requested each year, what we've been funded each year, our average daily membership, what that funding is per student, what the increase has been each year from the county, and then what the average annual inflation rate has been. And so as you can see, the last 2 years it has been at $1 million, which was a 4% increase over 2023, but we're still right at the $550 per student funding from the county, and it's just not keeping pace with inflation. This is the local effort computation from our low wealth funding, just to show that when the state calculates our low wealth funding, they reduce the amount that we would otherwise get based on what our county effort is. And of course, it's a very extensive calculation, and a lot of their calculations are based on state averages. State average tax rate of about 55%, which is ours is like, I think 38%. But after all that computation, they come up with what the local effort is. And currently, that calculation comes out to 24.2%, 24.8%. So based on that, then we get only 24.8% of our low wealth funding.
Stephanie, are we able, do we challenge that, or can we, how black and white is the system that you have to put that in?
It is pretty black and white. I mean, it's black and white in the fact that we've asked before to be able to count like our impact aid funding, because to us, that's really a payment in lieu of our local funding. So to us, that should be kind of factored in there, but we haven't gotten anywhere with that, ability to do that
Casey,
calculation.
we're part of a group, a low wealth consortium.
Okay.
And if that's something that you would like to approach with, I believe the policy group are our lobbyists on that, as well as small schools, okay? And if you want to have a conversation about how could we challenge that, or how
Sure.
could we work on that, I'm pleased to set that up,
Okay.
okay?
This is another just, slide that just shows our historical low wealth, funding, and you can just see that our allotment continues to just go down, each year, so. And our amount per student has dropped drastically down to $39 per student for low wealth funding. This is just another illustration just to show a comparison between other districts. I've included districts that also receive impact aid funding, other districts that are just similar in size, other districts that are just in our region, just to show that where our wealth percentage is, our percent of effort from the county, and as you can see, we're the lowest of those that are illustrated here, and then where we rank as far as effort, and we're at the bottom at 100 as far as the ranking by effort, but we're also ranked at the 36th in the state for ability to pay. Now, once again, this ability to pay, the state takes what the tax base is, and they basically take what the average state tax rate is and apply it to our tax base. So what they're doing is they're taking that computation and really saying that we have the ability to produce much more revenue than what we currently have. Our argument has been in the past that we're unique in the fact that our tax values are much higher than most counties just because of the secondary residences and such in this area.
Stephanie, going back to that the one slide previous, you mentioned that downtrend in
Yeah.
allotment received.
Right.
Is that pretty uniform across all, or are we unique there, or is everybody else getting hit with that same downtrend? Meaning, like the next slide, you show some other similar counties.
Right. No, I think it's just a direct reflection of how the state calculates that, and shows how our allotment just continues to go down because our effort percentage continues to go down.
Can you explain again what the effort percentage really means?
Right, so they look at the ability for a county to generate revenue, what that would equate to as far as how much they could generate per student. They compare it back to a state average, and then they look at what we're actually getting per student. And so they might say that we have, as a county, the ability to pay $2,500 per student, but we're only paying, or they're only giving us $550 per student. So then they're saying that our percent of effort is only at 25%. So therefore, then they reduce our allotment based on that. This is really just to show that we have other funding sources that hinge based on what we receive from the county, but that's not to say that that computation is a true picture of what actually is our situation in this county.
Yeah, it's a skewed stat.
Just for information purposes, to provide what our impact aid that we receive, because that is money that we do receive because we're heavily impacted by federally owned land. And so this just shows that our student-based revenue from impact aid, this is based on our application year, so, which is different than how much we might receive each year. But so this also shows that as costs are going up, our impact aid funding is not going up. As a matter of fact, it's actually trending lower, and that's student based is because we've got fewer students that are living on federal lands. But our land-based, amount is basically a fixed amount. Our base amount is the $557,785, which is they only give us a certain percentage of that every year, so we're guaranteed the $557,785 if it is reappropriated. Impact aid is not forward funded, so we're always waiting to see if that is going to be approved every year. But if it is, then the $557,785 is our base amount for the land portion. So our total this year is around, estimated to be around $2.8 million for both. And we had 766 federally impacted students versus 795 from the previous year, but you can see from 2018, it's went down from 924. But our per student amount is at 3,007 because there has been some push at the federal level to increase the student-based amount. This is our impact aid by fiscal year. This is how much we've received by year. And so I think I explained last year, 2024 was a very good year because basically they shored up all the previous years and went ahead and paid us 100% of the 2024 amount. Usually they'll hold back at least 20% every year, and we just wait, and it just depends on when they decide to release that. So which means this year will be much lower, $1 million lower, because we're just now, we're only gonna be able to receive our current year amount. We have nothing left in the previous years to collect upon, so.
And that increase last year,
Mhm.
where they kind of back paid us,
Mhm.
that a large portion of that went into fund balance, didn't it?
That is correct.
And that's one of the reasons that we saw the fund balance grow this year.
Yes, because we had no idea we were gonna be getting that, so we did not budget for that last year. This is just another illustration just to show where, impact aid is kind of trending. The green line is trending downwards. Local funding has kind of stayed level, and the cost of maintenance is tipped up, as you can see. So just another illustration just to show that we're just trying to be able to keep pace with the cost. Any questions?
No, I don't, nothing for this. I'd love to sit down with you and go through some more of
Yeah.
this, but
Yeah.
probably good info in there.
And like I said, this is what Stephanie will go over with the commissioners next week. But are there other items, other issues that you have on your heart and mind that you would like for us to have in our conversation next week as well?
Anything else to include?
Okay, if you think of something that you would like to include in the conversation, then please let us know so that we can be prepared for that. Okay?
I know last year they looked at alternative revenue sources for taxes and
Yes.
asked us to give our thoughts on it. We did, about potential higher taxes on rental homes, Airbnbs, VRBOs and stuff like that. And they mentioned the constraint on, I think they have to meet a certain level of taxes themselves for taxing local before the state allows them to tap into that. I just wanted to bring that up. We mentioned that last year, so that there's other stuff out there potentially, but that's the only thing I could think of. They asked us last year specifically what we thought could be done. And I just want everybody to think about that, because if they ask the same question, we can give them an answer.
Okay.
And Mr. Sell, on that too, the county had a tax rate increase last year too that generated some additional tax revenue. They have put in this year's budget, an additional appropriation for the school, but I don't know that it's going to be recurring. So what I gave you there was what their base was. If they code it differently, other than what that base is, if they were to include it there and then not be able to do it as a recurring amount, then it could potentially be considered, supplanting, and then that could really throw off our low health funding, so, but just to be transparent, there is additional funding in this year's budget, but it's just not on a recurring line. It's considered like an additional appropriation like they did for the TAs.
I think that's something for us to keep our eye on, okay? Because there was a tax increase that was voted on, and part of the reason for that was to support the school system. And I think we just need to keep our eyes on that and make sure that that continues. And sometimes, the commissioners tend to count as part of their effort funding that's coming out of Article 46. And on a personal level, I challenge that, because that money was dedicated to the school system in the vote. So I don't see that as part of their effort. Now, that's my personal opinion.
It's statutory.
We just need to keep our eyes on that.
Correct.
Okay? All right. The next thing in discussion are first reading for board policies, and there's a lot there, and I know that, and that's what those notebooks are for you all. I know you haven't had a chance to really look at them, and I anticipated that. I'm going to draw your attention to a couple of them. A primary policy in there to make sure that we're staying on top of is the first one that you have in your book, and that is policy 1310. That came in, I wouldn't say it came into existence, but it was certainly added to with the Parents' Bill of Rights. It jumped to 17 or 18 pages that year. Now, I have given to you a lot of information that is linked together. And what Katrina and I did is we sat down with policy 1310 and identified everywhere that information that is requested or required in there can be located. And 2 documents are where you would find most of the information that's required in there. One is the Student Code of Conduct, and the other is the Parent Guide to Student Achievement. I have printed those and given those to you as well, so you can reference them if you want to. I just want you to have the information about where we can find those things to make sure that we're following that policy. The changes in the policy itself are not really that great, but I just want to make sure that you have all that information. And if I need to sit down and show you where to find that, I'd be pleased to. I just want you to be informed on those pieces. That's been a pretty big conversation point for the past couple of years because of the Parent Bill of Rights. Policy 2302 has some changes in it that have to do with how board members can participate and how their participation remotely counts. Okay, I need you to pay fairly close attention to that. It's not that you can't participate in board meetings remotely, but sometimes your vote may or may not count, and sometimes you may count the quorum and you may not. Okay, just take a look at that, just so you'll know. All of the technology policies that are in here, webpage, I have shared with Karen Cook, and she likes what they're saying. I want to draw your attention to one in particular, and it's really not a technology policy, but it has technology concerns in it, and that's policy 4329, okay? With the introduction of artificially created images and manipulated images, we're finding that we need to make sure that we are prepared for that, and Karen has asked that we add a couple of lines. And so in policy 4329, which you have, there are some additions. I'd be pleased to show those to you, but it has totally to do with AI images. I believe that they're called deep fake. Okay, deep fake. And we actually had to deal with that at the high school at least once, if not twice, in the not too distant past. Okay, the rest of them I would encourage you to run through, and what we will do is Mitch and RL and I will sit down between now and the next meeting and fine tune them, and then come back with any suggestions from them, okay? And once you get back into the minor revisions, those are really just editing pieces. I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time looking at those. It's the substantials that are in the front, okay? That's just light reading for you, and, you know, take it with you on spring break, and enjoy it on the beach, okay?
Mark, quick question on that policy 1310.
Yes, sir.
On the parental notification, is that the handbook or is that a different document? Or that's something we can talk about? I was just wondering.
I would need you to direct me to what section that would be.
That's policy 1310, page 3 of 15. That's section C. I just wonder if that's the handbook.
There are different types and different levels of parent notification that will be required through that, according to what is happening with those. And for me to say that is just in the handbook, I think that would be too quick and short an answer. Okay, I think that what you said, we can look at that. I think it would be good for us to look at that together, okay, and see where those can be found. There are some things now, RL, that are required parent opt-in. There are some that are just parent notifications. There's just a whole plethora of those issues in there, okay? That didn't completely answer your question.
Well, I know that's just a general idea.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I give a little bit of context on the remote participation policy?
Yes.
If y'all have the appetite for it right now. There was a Court of Appeals case that came down not too awful long ago that was about a Board of County Commissioners that had gone into, I think it was in Currituck, if I remember right, gone into closed session. It had a lot of meetings where they were in closed session. It had to do with replacement of the sheriff, I think. So it was a big deal as to what they were dealing with. They were doing it sometimes with counting a quorum as the only two members were sitting in the meeting room, and the rest of them were remote. And they said, well, it's a quorum because you're remote, and we're just gonna say that's good enough. County commissioners and cities, municipalities have a statute, it's a voting statute that says present in voting. There's several places in statute that say pretty directly, if you're not in the room, you don't get to count toward the quorum and you don't get to vote. And that was the case before we had emergency rules, before the pandemic, before there was any way to do any of that stuff. There is not, and there still isn't any statute that's similar for school board members. There isn't anything that says you can't remotely participate. And so when well before the pandemic, this policy was adopted the model was proposed by the School Board Association to just put some rules around how you're gonna do it, and it really envisioned, like, if one of you had to be away, you could call in and still vote. And to this day, that's legal to do. There isn't any statute that says you're not able to vote that way. What's different now, and what the court kind of hammered that Board of County Commissioners about, is that after the pandemic, or toward the end of it, we had the adoption of emergency meeting rules, where if you're under a state of emergency, it says this is how people remotely participate, and when that's the case, this is how you can do it. And they say, hey, county, you should have known better. There was no state of emergency, so you shouldn't have had anybody trying to remotely participate. So the School Board Association, I think, now, it's true, we only have a set of rules that tell us how to operate when everybody's remote, if you're in a state of emergency, and not otherwise. And so what they remove in part is the idea of local emergency. There is no locally declared emergency. That's not a legal thing that lets you have there are locally declared emergencies, but you can't have a remote meeting based on one. I think it's a little bit of an overreaction to that case, because we still do not have statutes that say school board members can never participate remotely. So what the policy said before was you would never have a completely remote meeting. You would have at least a quorum in the room, and if you did, then people who were remote can call in and participate. And I can't tell you that's legally insufficient, just based on that one case. So I'm not saying you shouldn't adopt that change. I am saying I think you're going a little bit further than I can tell you that the law definitely requires you to say, okay, no, we'll only have remote, nobody can participate remotely unless we're in a state of emergency. I think that overstates it for school boards. So just take that into consideration. I don't know how often you're doing it. If y'all are always here and you're not really that worried about it, but I think it's an overread to say, if RL's on vacation, you can't call in and say, and vote when the rest of you all are sitting here. I don't think that's illegal.
So if I were to provide for you a copy of that particular policy, would you make recommendations for us?
I think what it basically comes down to is agreeing that the only time you can have a remote, an emergency meeting is when there's a statewide declared state of emergency, because that is the law. But I would remove anything that says you would never participate remotely otherwise.
Okay.
But yes, I'm happy to give some thoughts on it.
That would
And I'm
be,
doing that for several other clients.
that would be very helpful.
Okay, my pleasure.
Okay. And I should have drawn your attention to one other policy, and that is policy 9125, which is participation by minority businesses. Okay, minority businesses. And one of the reasons I want to bring your attention to that one is with the executive orders that have come out of Washington, and particularly with a memo that came out of someone's office in Washington, there has been some real confusion and real concern about how do we apply these to issues like participation by minority businesses. Because when you're talking about DEI concepts, this falls right into that, it seems, okay? And so I have John here tonight in part to share with you our legal counsel's thoughts on, so what do we do with that, and how do we move forward and stay within what is most important, and that is the law. Okay?
So the first thing I want to mention is, and we had really good, robust discussion in the office about that memo, and anybody who's interested in our take about sort of globally this idea of DEI and removing it from policies and the correspondence we've had from what currently is the Department of Education, may not be much such a thing much longer. Happy for you all to have that and look at it. One of the things that comes to mind immediately for me is the understanding of what DEI is has spread like it's sort of a, it's one of those political things that everybody's heard of, but it'd be real hard for them to get them to define it. If you think it means you hire somebody or give them an advantage or give them a thing because of their class or their status, then that's generally illegal already. And particularly where it's things like hiring, if you hire somebody or decide not to hire somebody because of their race, for instance, that's already illegal, it already was illegal. So this seems to be more like and laws like this one that have to do with promotion, or not promotion, but participation by minority businesses, it's really equality of opportunity to put a bid in, I think is the idea. It does not obligate you to select anybody. And in that same manner, I'm not sure you could or should hire somebody just because of a status issue like that. For this particular one, it is state law that you're required to take certain steps to make sure that these minority businesses, historically underutilized businesses, are aware that you have projects. And that's kind of the sum total of what you're supposed to do when those certain circumstances apply. I think if it's $100,000 or more of state funds, you're required to publish things in a certain way that they're made available to folks that fit that definition to bid in if they choose to. If it's over $300,000 from any source, you're supposed to do the same thing. But nowhere in there does it say, and you must select them. There's no advantage for having that status. But our thought on it is, if anybody had a question about why you kept this policy and is it DEI, you would say, it's state law. So we're trying to follow our state law. And I don't know how you can be expected to not follow the law over, you're being put in a pinch anyway. If somebody on a federal level considers that to be illegal for some other reason, I think their quarrels with the state, not you, for having a policy. But the answer in part is nobody gets an advantage because of that status. They get an opportunity to know that it's available and to bid on it. So that's my take on that.
There is in your information there somewhere, don't dig it up right now, I wish you just want to, about 7 or 9 policies that we need to look at after we've done these that have to do with this very issue. And I think that when we get to that point, it would behoove us to have John online or something to talk about those, to make sure that we are all understanding the direction we should go with them, okay? Because it could become sticky in interpretations.
Do we have anything outlined in the Vanoy or LS3P contracts that calls out minority participation or anything like that?
I think you basically don't have to, because the function of the construction manager is to step into your shoes to do public bidding. And so they have the same requirement to publish it for minority, for this same policy basically applies to them. They
There's
have
no
to
DBE goals or anything, though?
Sir?
There's no DBE goals or anything?
Not
though?
I don't think so. I think they're required to show the effort to have made it available.
What about, putting in a requirement though about them providing a report to us, cause we do have to report to DOA about,
Yeah. And we have documentation that we use for that I'm happy to make available to them. You know, we have done all of the construction documentation for this one under the AIA documents. The form that we use has here's the front end and back end documents, and it includes how you're gonna report that. I think Vanoy is gonna tell you, we do this every day and here's how we put this together, because they know you have reporting requirements. But I have a form and I'm happy to ask them and make sure that they.
maybe just as an addendum, just to
Yes.
say,
Yeah.
you know, we expect reporting on this.
Yes.
What, do you think about how often you would like that reporting? I guess it would need to fall in line with whenever you have to make reports themselves. Quarterly? Okay.
Yeah, and, you know, typically the contract is usually with the county, but it is actually gonna be with the school board, so we will need to make sure we're reporting that.
Okay.
And Mitch, just real briefly, your point about the percentage participation goals, you're required as part of that law to develop a stated goal for how much participation you're gonna have. It's just laudatory, like you don't have, there's no way to make it happen, you know, in any meaningful way unless they, you know, somebody who fits that definition
Didn't even have a
comes in
chance
and is
to
a
do-
low bidder. Because you're required to take the
Absolutely.
lowest responsible bidder for these things, so you couldn't say, we took them to meet some participation goal, that would be unlawful. I mean, you'd have a bid protest that you lose, so, anyhow.
Other thoughts, questions? Okay. I think, Cody, that sums up all of the discussion to my knowledge.
Okay. At this moment, do I have a motion to go into closed session?
I make a motion for the Board of Education to go into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11 under subsection A1 and A5, and 5, to prevent the disclosure of privileged or confidential information.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor, by show of hands? Closed session.
Do you want to agree with this, or just the board and you and me? It's up to you.
I could say it unless I'm
Yeah, that's it. Well, that doesn't matter.
I've been in those meetings.
We're back in the open session, moving on to the action items.
Okay, I recommend the Swain County Board of Education approve the consent agenda, including personnel and the minutes from the March 4th, 2025 and March 10, 2025 meetings.
Motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Passes.
I recommend that the Swain County Board of Education approve Scotty McMahon as the new athletic director.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Opposed? Abstentions? 2, 3.
I recommend that the Swain County Board of Education approve the budget amendments.
Motion. Second.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah, I was waiting on you.
All in favor by show of hands? Passes.
I recommend that the Swain County Board of Education approve the LS3P contract.
Motion?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Passes unanimous.
Don't believe, Cody, that we have any public comment tonight.
And we tabled the Vinoy, right?
Yeah, I just think before you look at it, is a week enough time for you to look at that?
Yeah, I'd like to get it done before spring break.
Okay, is that all right? Okay. Okay, let me see. Commissioner meeting April 8th, our May meeting is May 12th. I need to tell you that it is possible that we may need a meeting between now and then to hire the East Elementary principal, because we should have a candidate by when, Mr. Dills?
We're gonna interview Tuesday if we get back from spring break. We are closing applications on August the 9th. Is there a tenth? Or excuse me, April 9th. It's an A month. Guys, all running together. April the 9th. All right, then, after we go for spring break, I'm gonna send them with some stuff like philosophy of education, those types of things, written assignment type stuff for them to do and turn in on the Monday before, and then we're gonna interview on the Tuesday after spring break.
Okay, so,
Can we do that, Vinoy thing on the 8th when we meet with commissioners?
Sure.
We're already gonna be in a meeting set.
Yes, we can.
And I will not be here, I mean, I don't need Chattanooga, so,
That's what, well, you're going to a baseball game, aren't you?
no, I'm going to a conference.
Oh, that's right, okay. You want to participate remotely?
No, no.
Okay, yes, we can do that.
So what time would we need to meet on the 8th?
Before they start, which they start at 5, so we would need to meet at 4:30.
4:30.
Okay. We'll need to post that, okay, please?
Here.
Yeah, that'll be fine, just here. Look at April the 24th, is that right, Tommy? For a meeting for the principal,
Please, that's a Thursday, isn't it?
April the 24th? If that won't work, we can look into the next
For
week,
us to meet on that,
if we can.
I can meet that one.
It's a Thursday. If you don't know right now, you can get back to me, okay, please?
I think I'm good on that day.
Is this like an evening meeting or during the day
It
meeting?
could be whatever you want it to be. Casey, will you be in town? Do you know?
I am currently,
Okay. Is there a better time in the day for you?
if it's gonna be that Thursday, late afternoon would be good.
Okay, all right,
Now, could you,
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
We're talking April 24th, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
please. Okay. We're going to be transferring Reagan Black from east to west as a teacher. And also we will, that begins at the beginning of the next school year, correct?
Yes, sir.
And we're also going to be transferring Laurie Bailey from her current EC position into a CTE position. What's it called, Barbara?
Faculty Consumer Sciences.
Family Consumer
That's
Science.
Naira's position.
Yes. That'll be in August, and the reason that I feel comfortable doing that right now is because we have some SEC teaching candidates
Wow.
online to interview.
And we're interviewing them on Tuesday.
Okay,
next week.
It is.
okay.
So we got 4 right now that, and we've validated. got
We
that.
may add those to the April 24th meeting, because we need to get them under contract to do that.
When did you say the principal job was closing? April?
I believe that's all that I have for this evening, unless somebody has something else.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Meeting adjourned.
I'm supposed to stay here.
Yeah.
John, please don't do that.
I tell that joke about 30 times a month, and I never get tired. Definitely something wrong with it.